Mary Orvis Marbury says that she did not know the origins of the brown adder. Neither did she know how it got its name. A current search on the internet for this fly shows nothing. I suspect that there may be other illustrations, other plates of this fly in other old books, considering that in 1892 this was a tried and true fly. I'm tying it from the illustration by Charles Orvis in Mary's book, Favorite Flies and Their Histories. I'm tying the fly on a number 12 dry fly hook, although it really looks more like what today we would call a soft hackle wet fly. I'm using brown thread, and I'm putting a silver tag on the fly. I have a bicolor tinsel, and I tie it in with the silver side towards the hook. That way when I flip the tinsel, the silver side shows. And I will wrap down a few wraps just so that there's enough that a tag shows on the finished fly. Bring my tinsel back up to my tie-in point and wrap around it to hold it in. The tail in the illustration is 3 gray light-colored fibers, so I am using the fibers off of this pheasant feather. I just have 3 of those, and I am laying them so that they curve up and away, hook shank length about. Wrap those in. And then they'll separate and become those 3 fibers, 3 tail fibers. Clip off the butt end. I'm using copper wire. I don't know why the spool actually says gold, but it looks like copper wire to me, and I think it's very much what is in the illustration. So this is the rib. I'll tie that in and come back to where the tail is tied in. For the body, I am using rust dubbing. The illustration does show a fairly nicely tapered body. Let's see if I can get a nice point on that dubbing and work a taper into this. Just get heavier, thicker as I wind up the shank. And I probably got more dubbing than I need there, so I can pull some of that off. Try to keep the eye clean. Take the wire, and I'm going to counter wrap the wire. I think counter wrapping, and I have heard this from other tires as well, helps that rib sit on top of the body and hold it in better. It is less likely to get lost down between the body fibers. So catch that wire in, and then wiggle that off, wiggle it back and forth. I just like to, people call it helicoptering, and I find that both circular and back and forth motions work to break that off. For the front hackle, I'm using a brown hen in that soft hackle wet fly appearance that this fly seems to have in its illustration. And I'm going to grab that stem with my hackle plier, and then as I wrap, I'm going to pull back on the fibers. And that will help them to lean back and hopefully help keep the eye clean. And I'll just wrap until I'm out of fibers on my stem. It looks like a fairly healthy full hackle in the illustration. Yeah, the hackle plier broke off of the stem. So fortunately I was holding it and caught it there and didn't have to rewind it. But I'll catch that stem in. And then I'm going to wrap up over it, start creating the head. Don't want too much there yet because I have to tie the wing in yet. And then I can just snap that stem out. And I'm going to take and just kind of separate the top here and push down. And then I'll tie the wing in on top of that hackle. So for the wing, I do have wild turkey. And I've cut a couple of sections. I'm laying them back to back. And then just kind of measuring a little bit longer than the length of the hook. And a loose wrap, and then cinch down on it. And some good catch and wraps. And then I can clip out that butt end. Finish wrapping the head. When Mary wrote her book, they did not have hooks that had eyes on them. And so they actually wrapped in some gut material, I believe it was. But the head on those flies is very square, at least in the illustration by Charles Orvis. Let's see if I can do a whip finish here without grabbing fibers from that hackle. I got one there. Just snap it out. And then for the head cement, I do use a diluted goop. I'll put a recipe for that in the description. Just dip a needle in my solution, drop it on the head, and that'll dry clear. And then I can take a dry hackle feather, I've just got a tip here, and push that through the eye of the hook, and that'll clean out the eye and make sure that I don't have any glue in the eye. So from Mary Orvis Marbury's book, Favorite Flies and Their Histories, the Brown Adder.